Shiny metal light, ghostly in the night, holds the world.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm excited for today's deep dive because, well, we're going to be doing things a little differently.
Oh, how so?
Well, usually we, pick a book or an article or something like that to discuss.
Right.
But this time around, our jumping off point is a song, believe it or not.
A song, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, it's called Aluminum, and it's
All right.
from this album called Periodic One by Kurt Holes.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, the whole album's basically about the periodic table. Like, he set all these different elements to music.
Wow, that's pretty creative.
Yeah, it's actually pretty catchy, for a science-themed album.
So what is it about aluminum that made the song stand out to you as something to, base a whole deep dive on?
Well, I mean, first of all, aluminum's everywhere, right? I mean,
Yep.
think about it. We've got aluminum cans, foil airplanes, even parts of buildings are made from aluminum.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of the most widely used metals in the world.
Exactly. And the song kind of captures that. Like, it talks about how aluminum is shiny metal light, ghostly in the night.
I see. Yeah, those lyrics definitely paint a picture.
Right. And it made me think about how aluminum is used in things like mirrors and telescopes because it's so reflective.
Yeah, that reflectivity is really key to a lot of its applications.
But why is aluminum so good at reflecting light anyway? Like, what makes it so shiny?
Well, you see, it's all about the way the atoms are arranged in the metal, at a microscopic level.
Okay.
The way those aluminum atoms are structured, they're really good at bouncing back light that hits them. Like, almost all of it gets reflected, which is why it has that super shiny, almost ghostly glow.
That makes sense. And, something else that I found super interesting about aluminum is that it used to be way more valuable than gold.
Oh, yeah, that's a great bit of trivia.
I mean, it's hard to imagine now when you think about all the disposable aluminum products we have. But back in the day, it was like a luxury item.
Absolutely. Back then, extracting pure aluminum from bauxite was a real challenge. I mean, it was so difficult and expensive that aluminum was actually considered more precious than gold for a time.
Wow, seriously. So, like, if you wanted to impress someone back, then you'd whip out your aluminum silverware.
Exactly. Like Napoleon III, the French emperor, he had a special set of aluminum cutlery that he would only use for his most important guests.
That's wild. It's crazy how much things have changed, right?
Yeah. It's amazing how a metal that was once so rare and valuable is now so commonplace.
Well, and, speaking of how we use aluminum, the song goes on to say, holds the world so tight. And that got me thinking about how aluminum is literally used in construction and transportation all over the world.
Yeah, that line really gets at aluminum's versatility and strength.
Right. Like, it's used in everything from skyscrapers to airplanes to cars.
Exactly. And that's largely due to its incredible strength-to-weight ratio.
Strength-to-weight ratio. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it basically means that aluminum is super strong for how light it is. Imagine a material that's as light as a feather but strong enough to build a skyscraper. That's aluminum. And that's why it's so essential in transportation, like airplanes and cars. I mean, can you imagine how much heavier those would be if they were made of steel or something?
Yeah, true. I can barely lift my suitcase as it is.
Exactly.
So, okay, the song goes on to talk about how aluminum is out of earth refined, cold and smooth to fine, which I guess is about the process of getting it out of the ground and making it usable.
Yeah, those lines make it sound pretty straightforward, but the actual process of extracting and refining aluminum is actually pretty complex and energy intensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of like baking a cake. You need a lot of ingredients and steps to get to the final product.
So what are the steps involved in getting aluminum from the earth?
Well, the first step is mining the bauxite ore, which is where aluminum is found. Then you have to refine the bauxite to get alumina, which is a kind of aluminum oxide. And finally, you have to smelt the alumina at super high temperatures to produce pure aluminum.
That sounds pretty intense.
It is. It takes a lot of energy to get that pure aluminum, which is something to keep in mind when we talk about the environmental impact later on.
Right, okay. So once we have the pure aluminum, then what? How do we get it into all these different shapes and forms that we use?
Well, that's where aluminum's malleability comes in. The song mentions how it bends but never breaks, forms in endless shapes, and that's a pretty accurate description.
Malleability. So that means it's easy to shape, right?
Exactly. You can bend its shape, mold it into practically anything, which is why we have everything from aluminum foil thin enough to crinkle to those sturdy aluminum cans that seem indestructible.
It really is amazing how versatile it is.
It is, and that's a big part of what makes it such a valuable material.
Okay, so the next line in the song is one of my favorites. It says, reflecting like the moon, which obviously ties back to the reflectivity we talked about before.
Right.
But it also feels kind of symbolic, like it's connecting aluminum, this human-made material, to something vast and celestial.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's like the songwriter is drawing a parallel between the moon's natural reflectivity and aluminum's man-made shine.
Exactly. And it makes me think about how we use aluminum to reach for the stars, literally, in the case of spacecraft.
That's a great point. Aluminum's lightweight strength has been essential in space exploration.
So moving on, the song gets a bit philosophical with these lines. Shape of dreams we build, hope in hearts it filled.
Yeah.
What do you think the songwriter's trying to say here?
Well, I think it speaks to the impact that aluminum has had on our lives. It's more than just a metal. It's helped us achieve some pretty incredible things.
Like what?
Well, think about it. Aluminum has made cars and airplanes lighter, which means they use less fuel. It's used in packaging that helps keep food fresh longer, and it's even used in medical devices that save lives.
Wow, when you put it that way, it really has shaped our world in a lot of positive ways.
It has. It's given us possibilities we couldn't have imagined before.
But I guess we can't forget about the environmental impact of aluminum production, right? All that energy that goes into extracting and refining it must have some consequences.
You're absolutely right. The energy-intensive nature of aluminum production is a serious concern, and it's something we need to be mindful of as we continue to rely on this amazing material.
So what can we do about it?
Well, for starters, we need to focus on recycling aluminum as much as possible. Recycling uses way less energy than creating new aluminum from raw materials.
That makes sense.
And we also need to find ways to make the production process itself more sustainable, like finding cleaner energy sources or developing new technologies that reduce the overall energy consumption.
Those were all good points. And I think the last lines of the song really sum up our relationship with aluminum. Beneath our feet it stands, crafted by our hands.
I love those lines.
Me too. It's like a reminder that even though aluminum comes from the earth, ultimately it's us humans who decide how to use it.
Exactly. We have the ingenuity to create amazing things with it, but we also have the responsibility to consider the impact of our choices.
So to wrap things up for everyone listening today, we've seen how aluminum, with its unique properties, has become a building block of our modern world.
It's true. From the everyday objects we use to the most advanced technologies, aluminum is everywhere.
But we've also learned about the environmental challenges that come with it and the importance of finding more sustainable ways to produce and use this incredible metal.
So here's something to think about. Knowing how much we depend on aluminum, what's the future hold for it? Will we see new groundbreaking applications? Will we find truly sustainable ways to produce it? The future of this shiny metal light is in our hands.
And on that note, that's our deep dive for today. I hope you found it enlightening, and as always, keep thinking critically about the world around us.
And remember to recycle your aluminum.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
In the dark it shows.